Have you ever been curious? Why the hell would anyone want to quit a stable job of electrical engineering to go into life coaching? Well, today's video, you're gonna find out. Welcome to my Refugee Hustle podcast, where I showcase people that are living a rich and free life and helping you figure out a life that you really want to live. Today I have Apryl. She is a life coach. Before you go being like, ugh, she's a life coach, Apryl actually has a very interesting story. She actually started off as an electrical engineering major, but then transitioned from career to career, everything from being an IT consultant to working in the universities. And she's just done so many different industries. It's crazy to hear her story. In today's video, we talk about why she left electrical engineering, how Apryl still uses engineering in her practice, and we talk about how to transition your career into a totally brand new field. You know, as I was listening to her story, I kept on thinking about my own story. And it's a really good reminder that you're never truly stuck to just one career. You can keep on evolving, kind of like how a magic carp turns into a Gyarados. If you're interested in connecting with Apryl, I'll put her links below. She also has a book on Amazon, Finding Success and Balance. I'll put my affiliate link below. And she also has an accountability group as well. Apryl is just a genuine person and she's really fun to talk to. Honestly, if you're just interested in just connecting with Apryl, she's down to talk to anyone. Let's get on with the interview. Enjoy.
Three, two, one, and we're live. So today, mother people, I got a special guest. I have Apryl, aka a boss-ass life coach who wrote this book that I recommended if you signed up for my emailing list. And I'm so glad to have you here on my video today.
Yay!
Yay!
So good to be here. So happy. We're gonna have so much fun.
I know, it's so crazy. When I first talked to you at Forefront at Ramit's event, I was like, this girl's so energetic. This girl reminds me of myself. When I was reading your book, I was like, oh, that overachiever, that's me.
It was really funny too, is that I was so tired and you were sick when we met each other. So we were probably low energy in comparison to where we are now. So this is the legit, bringing out us at the top of our game. When we have the energy, we are ready to go. So it'll probably be better than our first initial conversation.
Yeah, man. Literally, I was on my deathbed when I was talking to you. I was like, damn, but I had
he was like, okay, let me tell you.
I wasn't coughing. I was dabbing all the time and shit,
It was awesome. It was awesome.
It was just really, but we actually met at Ramit's event and it was really cool. I thought something that was really cool about that event is I got to meet so many cool people like you and whatnot that I normally don't get to meet in my everyday life. And to be surrounded by all these really cool people was just really exciting for me. You know?
Absolutely. Me too. I totally agree.
Yeah. And plus you got to see your boy, Sean Aker.
Aker.
Right?
Yeah. It's good. It was so good. He was somebody who I think somebody had shared his TED talk with me when I first started my job, and I said, this is the guy I wanna be like someday. And he's funny, and he was a really great storyteller, and just being able to see him do that talk in an extended form in person, it was just so uplifting and so exciting, and I laughed so much, even though I had already kind of heard the spiel already. Yeah. So it's kind of nice in that way where you can see something, but then when you connect with somebody on that level and you can kind of see it again and you know what to anticipate, but it still sounds just as good or even better than the first time you heard it. It's pretty awesome.
You know what's pretty funny? That was actually the first time I ever heard of him.
Oh, really?
And then I was like, holy shit. I watched his TED talk after. I was like, damn, dude, it was really crazy because a lot of the practices that he was talking about, gratitude and stuff, I already do, but it was really cool to see the science behind it and whatnot.
Yeah, and I think that it's really interesting because when there's so many different strategies and practices and things that you can do. It is really actually simple. You'll probably look at all of the different happiness experts, and they all kind of share the same thing. It's just a different way of delivering the message. So practicing gratitude is definitely something that I do in my work, and it's so simple. It's way better than meditating in my opinion, but it's still a form of meditation if you think about it that way. So it's almost just creating that space to really think and reflect on what you're grateful for, and how you want to move forward, and being able to train your mind to look for those opportunities instead of saying like, oh, my life is shit today, and this fucking sucks. So so it's good. It's good to try to default to a positive mindset instead of the negative, which is what we're normally wired to do.
Yeah, that's sometimes really hard though. Like sometimes you get like really caught up and whatnot. Like for me at least, like sometimes I'm like stuck in traffic, or I'm dealing like with a really tough patient. I'm just like, fuck, I don't want to be here. And it's so hard to like sometimes shift out of it. Do you have any tips for like kind of shifting?
Well, and I think that one thing that we all just need to acknowledge is that there's going to be shitty. You're going to have a shitty time. You cannot be. I think people look at me and they say, Apryl, you're so bubbly, like you're never upset, and that's totally not true. There's a lot of times where I'm, in the corner in my bed, like, woe is me, I fucking suck, and I have those days, but people just don't see them because I don't necessarily want people to see that, and sometimes I will show that, but it's just important to acknowledge that it's not always going to be candy and rainbows and unicorns, right?
Rainbows out your asshole, yeah. So it's really, really important to know and allow yourself to be in that state. But something that I've definitely been working on over the last few years is that I have a tendency to be very, very bubbly, but when I hit those dark moments, it's really, really bad, and I shut down. I don't want to talk to anybody. And so my goals have just kind of been, okay, I know that I'm going to go there, but how can I get myself out of that as quickly as possible? So maybe even 2 years ago when I started, or 3 years already? Oh my gosh. 3 years ago when I started coaching, I would really, really get discouraged, and I would sit in it for about 2 or 3 weeks. I don't know why I'm doing this. I don't know if I don't know if I'm good enough. But being able to slowly train myself to say, okay, this is not as bad. And I think it is a practice of really learning how to talk more positively to yourself. So even some of these things like the gratitudes, little things like that do help. It's not an overnight thing. I can't stress that, this is not something that there's like a pill that I can give you and then you'll all automatically be cured. But it is being willing to face your fears and your thoughts. I think that, especially for me, I've always been that type of person that when I'm upset about something, I kind of just squash it and say, I don't want to think about it because it's too painful. But not allowing myself to sit in that pain has basically forced me to not address the issue. And then it just comes back in full force, even harder than it did the first time. So really, especially going through coach training and realizing that there's scripts and dialogues that I've been having with myself my entire life that I didn't even realize. And when I was aware of what those were, it was like, oh crap, I need to deprogram myself, and I need to change that. So I had to confront, this is what I'm feeling. This is what I'm thinking when something like this happens. And then trying to lovingly talk myself into a new way of looking at that, but allowing myself to sit in that and acknowledging that this is part of the process. We're always going to find things where we're upset about something or something triggers us, but really then thinking about, now that I know that this is happening, how can I do it differently the next time? Or how can I talk to myself in a different way when I get into that in the future? So there's been a lot of times, especially, this year has been a little bit crazy, a lot of things happening and feeling defeated at various times and saying, okay, so the last time I felt this way, this is what happened. Did I get out of that situation? Yes. Am I creating this belief that I can never get out of this rut? And did I get out of it? Is this really true? And then really just kind of starting to talk through some of the things that my inner critic are saying and saying, that's not really true. So here's something different. And I know that this is something that's
trying to protect me from feeling pain, but this is not, you know, this is also holding me back from something that I want. So screw you, I'm gonna do this differently. And it's definitely worked. I think that the last time I got into this feeling of, oh no, I can't do this, it lasted about a day. So it's been a process over 2 years, but going from, you know, sitting in this feeling of crap for 2 weeks a few years ago to now being able to kind of get out of it in a couple hours or a couple days, it really, really helps with me continuing to stay productive, because when you're in those stressful situations, you're not thinking about you're just not thinking about moving forward. You're kind of like stewing in your own shit. So
definitely for me, social media definitely does not help, because like everybody shows their best side of them. They never show any of the dark days or anything like that. So when you do have like a really tough day, or like you're just having a shit moment, at least initially, like a few years ago, I used to be like, fuck, is there something wrong with me, man? Because everybody else seems like happy as shit, you know? And here I am, like, there must be something wrong with me, you know? And I think over like how you're definitely saying, like, it's definitely a practice, and you get better and better with getting out of that funk, you know?
Yeah. And I think just also realizing that there are people who everybody struggles, and knowing that if you see somebody who seems to be perfect in every way, there's some stuff that they're just not sharing. And so you're not the only one. I think it was really, really interesting to see how people reacted to my book, because they're like, wow, I didn't realize how much you struggled. Even people who have known me for 20 years, like, I didn't realize that you were going through all that. And I was like, did I make it sound worse than it actually was? Because I am super grateful of all the things that I have in my life, but I was just not as happy as I could be. And now that I have that little tool to get myself to this place of, yay, everything's good, I don't necessarily look at my life and say it's terrible, because there's, you know, there could definitely be worse. But, you know, even the people who I work with, they're struggling with things that I'm struggling with on a day-to-day basis. It's just that I might be a couple steps ahead of them. So I really, when I coach people, I really make sure that they know that I don't have, you know, all the answers. I know what typically works, but, you know, everybody's different. Even if doing gratitudes is helpful, maybe in the method that they're doing it doesn't work for them. So how do you tweak it so that it does work for you and it's not causing you more issues than being helpful? So just really, really thinking about that piece of, you know, everybody's got a struggle, and, you know, everybody's struggle is different. And maybe what people see as your strengths are their weaknesses, and vice versa. I think somebody was sharing that with me yesterday. Like they were telling me, you know, I look at how other people do certain things, and I'm envious. And then I tend to forget that they've got probably different struggles. So, everybody's got a struggle. It just might show up differently. And, you know, nobody's perfect at all.
And, you know, it's so funny, like sometimes, like for me, this is a huge problem for me that I've realized. And I've actually been, ever since Forefront, I've actually been really changing the script that I have to do everything myself. And so like, when I was reading your book, I was like, reading all your childhood struggles, you overachieving and stuff, and we'll go into a little more about that. But I realized, damn, I'm not alone, man. And it just felt really good to be like, yo, social media is putting shit in my head. Like, I'm not the only one that, you know, that feels this way, or who goes through these everyday problems and stuff, you know?
Yeah. For sure. And I mean, I think the media doesn't help either, because they'll put out things that are either charging, they make you think that you need something when you maybe don't even need that. And but that's just the nature of our world, right? We all have to make money, and those are the tactics that seem to, you know, they know how to hit those like emotional chords. So
definitely,
it's just a matter of being able to step away from that and not let that run your life. I don't check social media that much. I post on social media, but and you know, I've put things in place where I will, you know, prioritize the people that I'm friends with, who I make sure that I want to see their posts first, and then just making sure that I know that, maybe I'll put myself in a little bubble, but it's what I need to do to, be loving to myself, to make sure that I'm not sitting there focusing on all the negative, because there could be that stuff out there, or even the comparison piece, right? There might be people, there are people who just share all of these awesome things like, oh, hell yeah, I made this, X amount of dollars, or, oh my God, I got this speaking gig and I have so many clients. And, I do it too, but it's attention grabbing. But at the same time, it's making sure that you don't sit there and, compare yourself to what somebody else's journey is, because they're not walking the walk that you're walking. So you can't expect that you have that same exact path as them. Like, oh my gosh, I should totally be, doing a TED talk right now. Like, no, maybe it's just not the right time, or maybe it is, or, and taking a look at, if you are comparing, then, what's realistic in your life right now, instead of just saying like, I want to be them,
Yeah, I think that's that point, that everybody's on their own journey and stuff, or doing they're on their own path, really speaks to me, because a lot of people watching this, a lot of them are Asian, and oh my God, Asian parents are the epitome of comparing each other, man. Oh, my kid went to Stanford. Oh yeah, my kid went to MIT. It's just like, oh my God. Yeah. So why don't we switch gears here? Let's go into your childhood and stuff. Tell me what it was like growing up, because you're Pilo, and I thought like a lot of struggles that you went through, like a lot of us go through. So I was just wondering if you could talk a little bit about your childhood and whatnot.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will say that, I think I used to feel this pressure of, oh my gosh, I have to live to such a high standard. But I do want to, before I start saying anything, is that I'm super, super grateful about everything. I think the way that my parents raised me was amazing. I think that they, they're extremely hard workers, and they sacrificed a lot to get our family to be where we are now. And I don't think I would have been in this place if it weren't for them. So I absolutely love them. They're actually like here at my house right now. So
they're right behind you, whispering in your ear. Like, don't talk crap about me.
I know, no, but and I would never do that. And I think what's really, really interesting, and I don't think people realize, is that no matter what way you raise your kids, there's always going to be something that they're going to be like, my parents didn't do this way. So I'm raising my kids in a way that I feel is best, but I know that they're going to probably be like, they let me be on technology too much, and I didn't get to do all this fun stuff that like I should have spent more time like traveling the world or being more educated about stuff, but I just they let me play on my iPad too much. So no matter what, as a parent, you're never going to be perfect. You're going to basically take all the information that you have gathered over the course of your life, and you're going to parent in that way. So my parents came from, I'm probably one of the last people in my family that was born in the Philippines and came over. And I came over at 2 months. So, it wasn't like it was, I'm very Americanized. But at the same time, my parents wanted to live an American lifestyle. And that totally makes sense. It's more of a dream lifestyle to some people who are in the Philippines. And not to say that we were struggling and super poor, but my parents really, really worked hard to be successful, not just in the Philippines, but here as well. And so there was a lot of, the biggest priorities were education and career and money, financial stability more than just money, being able to not have to struggle, because that was something that they had to work hard for, and it wasn't just something that was handed to them on a silver platter, right? Yeah. And I think that that's how most people who come from their origin country are, they have to work really hard, and it makes sense, right? And so they instilled a lot of those values of, really having a really great work ethic, and really just focusing on school, because working hard at school, and would basically get you into a good college, which would then get you a good paying job, which would then, have you find, your partner who is also successful, and then, would lead you to, the nice house and the nice cars and the picket fence and the children and all of that stuff, which is the ideal that we all kind of strive to, because that's what society says is, you want to have all of those things. And I mean, they're all great things. But from a very early age, there was just a lot of pressure to have really, really good grades. And early on, I realized that, my parents wanted me to be a doctor, lawyer, or engineer. And I was like, I don't want to be in school forever. So I didn't do the doctor thing. The lawyer thing, I felt like, oh my God, I'm going to have to read a lot, and I don't want to do that. And so engineering was this is a challenge, and I'm not really sure what that is, but it sounds fancy, and it's math and science, and I like math and science, so I'll go for that.
So that's how you chose engineering? You're just like, I like math and science, and I'm just going to go into it?
Yeah, pretty much. I loved physics when I was going through high school, and I loved calculus. I would literally, one of my jobs throughout my life, I was a high school math teacher, and I had to take all these tests, these placement tests, or not placement, but basically just these proficiency tests. And so I would buy, and I probably have them in back behind me, but they were like these books that were this thick on algebra, geometry, trigonometry, stats, calculus. And they were thick books, and I would sit there and I would do every single problem, and I just have notebooks, and I'd be like, oh, this is awesome, solve for X, I'm going to do this. Totally geeked out on that stuff. So I figured, at least it blends math and science, and it's not just I don't know what to do with a math degree, which I could, and economics didn't really, the business stuff didn't really appeal to me at that point, but it was like, all right, that's what my parents wanted me to do, and I want to prove to them that I respect them, and I want to do that. Now, I'm going to say that I don't regret getting an engineering degree. I think that it's actually the best degree that you can have, just because even if it's more math and science focused, it's not about the math and science. It's about the way you can way you problem solve. And it's just the mindset. And I didn't even realize this until, 15 years later. But it was also a challenge. I decided to go for electrical engineering.
Oh, that's like one of the hardest ones, dude.
Yeah. So it was like, I'm like, you think that I look like a certain way and that I'm not smart enough for this? I'm going to prove you wrong. So there was a lot of just a lot of reasons why I decided to go that way. And I thought about maybe mechanical or industrial, but I'm like, no, I'm a nerd. I'm going to do electrical. And I geeked out on circuits and stuff like that. So, but what was interesting was that like, I was really, really proud to get the degree and do really well. But then I also realized that engineers have a tendency to be really introverted, and when I was interviewing, I was like, I don't want to just sit in front of a computer and like do things on my own. I was noticing that I love working with people, and so I wanted to do collaborative stuff. So I started this transition of, I worked for this like electrical counter manufacturing company in college, and it was like super small, and we were all like super dorks, like, we're gonna like do all this fun stuff and put this stuff together. And it was fun, but it was like, I don't know if I could do this for my entire life, like be with like 5 other engineers and just sit here. And so I started thinking about, okay, well, what's different? Where can I do collaborative stuff? And I actually went into IT consulting out of college.
What exactly is IT consulting? Like,
so I did. There's so many different things that you can do, but what the specific stuff that I did was more data warehousing. So it would be basically taking data and figuring out how to kind of package the data, and based on the way that we were collecting things, figuring out how to report and analyze. So I worked with a whole bunch of companies that had, different data systems, and they were trying to pull, different metrics and being able to create a reporting structure that would help them track certain things. So I worked for some really cool companies like NASA and Nike and Chicago Tribune and stuff like that. So
never heard of any of them. Never heard of any of them.
And most of the projects were not. I think the longest project I was on was like 3 or 4 months, but it was still like really, really cool to see. And the data or the the platforms we were using at the time were SAP, super German platform. So like back then, a lot of the search, like all the buttons were like in German, and I'm like, what's this? But it was really, really interesting. And I think that doing IT was better because I was interacting with a team, and it wasn't just like I felt like I was doing things on my own. But then I was starting to feel like, okay, this is just going to the office every day.
Yeah,
I don't know about this. And one of the big reasons that I left was there was a time that they sent me to Australia, which of course I should be grateful about going to Australia, right? But they decided to send me the day before my brother's high school graduation. He was 5 years younger than me at the time.
Oh, no.
And I was like, can I just fly out a day later? And it wasn't like we were all flying on the same flight, but my boss basically said, you got to pick between your job and your family. And I was like, oh, hell no. So that was the start of the transition. So, yeah, it was just not cool. And I was starting to realize that there was just more to, I was making a lot of money. It was really, really awesome. I got to travel and I didn't have to pay for it, but it wasn't like, don't you dare ever tell me that I need to pick my work over my family. So that's when my priorities started to change. And I could probably go into this like long, I don't know if you want to go there, but like I basically chose to become a high school teacher because I was still geeking out on math. And I was like, well, this is a more predictable schedule. I know that I'm working for 9 months and then I'm off for 3 months. But it was just, I was missing this, there was just a flow to my job that just wasn't working. And so I had to go through all these different careers to figure out like, how can I actually design the job that I want? And the last job that I was in, I was really excited about, had really great work-life balance, but then I hit this point where I was having issues with the way that I was interacting with my boss, and it got me to a point where I was so stressed out that I'm like, screw this. I need some space. I got to start over and figure out what to do next. So yeah, I've been kind of all over the place, but it all kind of started with this feeling of, I went from job to job to job, knowing that like I needed to have a high paying job to make money. But then I was like feeling guilty because I was like, I'm veering farther and farther away from engineering. And I spent all of this time getting this degree and now I'm not using it. And I felt a lot of guilt.
Did you get a lot of backlash from your friends and family too for not using your engineering degree?
So my mom liked to say from, as I went from, the IT consulting to the teaching to even when I was working at Northwestern, she liked to say that like my daughter's an engineer. And I was like, I'm not an engineer anymore. And she's like, but you got the degree. And I'm like, I get it. I did get the degree.
Yeah.
And so, now in hindsight, when I look at that and, that was something that she was really, really proud of. And of course, like, I am an engineer by trade. It's now that I'm just using it in a different way. Yeah. So like I used to feel like, what? Are you ashamed because I'm a teacher now? Like, why do you still want to call me an engineer? Yeah. But I get it, and I think that at the very core, I am an engineer, and I actually spent a lot of time in the last couple of years saying, okay, I'm an engineer by trade, but I'm doing this life coaching thing now. Like, how can I actually meld what I learned in engineering into my current business? Because I don't think that people think about that connection. And then I realized that, there is a piece of the problem solving and all the things that I learned as an engineer that I bring into my coaching conversations. And that kind of sets me apart. I think there are actually a lot of engineers now who have become coaches, and it's really looking at, it's just a different type of problem. Instead of trying to figure out like, how am I going to design this like circuit thing? How am I going to design this life that I want to create? And so it's a different conversation, and it's more fun than like, oh, program the next iPhone. It's, I mean, and of course that was like my dream back then, but like being able to help people live a life that they really, really want and using engineering principles to do it is so much more fulfilling, and it's still leveraging everything that I've learned. So really being able to cherish and appreciate, no matter what path I went through to get to where I'm at. Like, I'm basically weaving all of those experiences into what I do now. And now I wouldn't have it any other way. And I feel like this is the definition of success that I should have been going for. And maybe I needed to go through all of that crap and all of those steps in order to get to where I'm at. So I don't necessarily think that anything that I did in my past was a failure, but it was just kind of a part of the process to get to where I'm at today. Yeah.
Quick question, like, how did you, like, because the jump from an engineer to IT consulting to a teacher and to eventually a coach, like, how did you go about, like, finding about the next step, you know, during each of those transitions?
Yeah, and I think that the big piece was just really figuring out like what wasn't working in the current state. So my engineering the IT job initially was, you know, the first big piece was I wanted to collaborate with people. So IT was gonna, or like consulting was gonna provide that over just being in an engineering job. Because literally I went and interviewed at Motorola, and I met this guy who was like sitting at his desk like plunking at something, and the guy I was interviewing with was introducing to me to this guy, and he literally like turned around and he like shook my hand, and then he turned back, did not say a word, and I'm like, no,
dude, that's
I
so
can't.
Awkward.
Yeah, it was so awkward. So I was like, I don't know if I want to do that. And I mean, it's just even part of the interview process. You know, I interviewed with like Caterpillar, and they were like, oh, let's talk about tractors. I'm like, I don't really have a passion for tractors. Like, I don't know. This is getting scary. So so it was just kind of this, wow, like this isn't fun. And you know, maybe I didn't think about that like in detail, or wasn't really aware, but that was what I was seeing in these engineering jobs. I'm like, I want to do something that's exciting and fun and innovative. Yeah. So I did the IT thing, and when I switched to teaching, it was more of like, okay, my career is not fully 100% my life, so I need to find a career that's going to, you know, weave in some of the things that are outside of my life, so that I can enjoy those things. I don't want my career to like rule me. I care about my family. So that was why I made the jump there. But it was still like trying to problem solve. Like I was working in the city actually teaching like, so inner city kids. And it was a challenge that, you know, I love. Like, there's my overachiever, like, oh my God, I'm going to get these kids to be super excited about math. Which was, you know, that was maybe idealistic, but I still was able to figure out different innovative ways to teach people how to enjoy math a little bit more, or, you know, figure out quicker ways, more efficient ways. The job after that, I started working in higher ed, so there was a little bit of a connection there, but I worked more on the administrative side. So I ran academic departments. It was funny because I went from teaching high school math to running the math department at my alma mater. So it was like there was a link. So I was, you know, basically being the main support person for you know, all the faculty and the graduate students there. And then I moved to like a mechanical engineering department and ran that department. And then I started working in finance. So it was like I was just going through all of these different things, and I was trying to, at that point when I was working in higher ed, it was like I thought I found, you know, this is where I want to be. I'm gonna work my way up the chain. And what was interesting was that when I was working at Northwestern, I was appointed the chair of the Staff Advisory Council, which is basically the main voice of the 7,000 staff that work at Northwestern. And I was basically the representative to the you know, the president and basically the people running the show, and really bringing staff issues to light. And one of the things that I was super passionate about was staff engagement. You know, I saw a lot of people that were like, we're working so hard and like we don't feel appreciated. And it was like, what are the things that we can do to feel appreciated? But what can we also do as staff to really enjoy our experience? Because this is our job. We spend more time at work than we do like outside of work, and when you remove sleeping. So how do we make this experience fun and engaging, and, you know, what we want it to be? So I was trying to do all these initiatives to like help engage staff better, promote better work-life balance. And this is kind of where, you know, the things that I do in my job right now, where I was starting to see that I was super passionate about that. There was a lot of the feels of like, I really want to be happy. And that was where it started. And when I left Northwestern, I realized, okay, so I like totally geek out on all this, you know, creating a vision and creating a plan and really feeling engaged with life. But I also see that all the other jobs that I had this element of really identifying a process. And no matter what industry I was in, it was like, okay, here's how we do things, but here's how I think we can do it better. So that's when I started realizing, okay, that's my jam. I'm really good at process efficiency, and I really love working with people, and I'd rather talk about life than I'd talk about money and finance and whatever else, tractors or circuit, So that was kind of how that led me to my current path. And what's really interesting is that I didn't even know what coaching was when I started. Yeah. But when I started telling people like, hey, I want to do this thing where I like work with people and help them, problem solve how to make their lives more fun so that they can actually take vacations, they can actually do things that they're passionate about that might not have to do anything with work, and that just so that they can make more time for it, but to basically take what they've got in their lives right now and make it run so efficiently that they have all this extra time that they can do the things that they want and really enjoy life. And they're like, oh yeah, you want to be a life coach. Which was, I had all this whole stigma about what a life coach was. And,
yeah.
I'm like, yeah, that's like engineer to life coach. I don't know what my family is gonna think about that.
I think sometimes too, like when people hear life coach, they automatically start to like cringe and stuff like that.
Yeah. And I think I struggled with that all through. Yeah. Even when I was writing the book, my editor kept on wanting me to say you're a life coach. And I think I did end up just taking her edits. And I'm like, okay, at the very core of it, that's what I do. I coach on how to have a better life. Yeah. But I don't like calling myself a life coach. And so I kind of grappled with that throughout the whole writing process. And then at the very end of writing my book, I'm like, oh shit, I'm a happiness and productivity coach. Like that's really what I coach around. Yeah. How to be more positive, and how to accomplish this stuff, how to do stuff. Yeah. And it took me a while. It was funny too, because I think that my tagline, it's like I help people have more fun while getting stuff done.
Yep.
That's happiness and productivity. And I didn't even think about that way to call myself until the book was already edited a gazillion times. I'm like, oh crap. Okay, so I'm a happiness and productivity coach. That's what I do. And I think it allows people to connect a lot better. And I think I started out by saying I'm a work-life balance coach, but people were like, what's that? Which was really interesting because now I was able to answer that question in the book. Yeah. Because that's, people know that they want work-life balance, but they might not even know how to get there or what it actually is. And so it was a great process of really defining the type of work that I do and writing that book, and at the same time sharing all the crazy stories that I have in my life on how to do anything.
Yeah. So you shared your journey of like your whole, how you even got to being a coach, right? Mm-hmm. But if you were to shortcut that journey, like what would you do differently if you were to start all over again?
I think that, and I don't think I would have noticed this until I think that I went through exactly the journey that I needed to go. Yeah. But I think that when I finally went through coach training, one of the things that I realized was that I had so many beliefs about what I was capable and not capable of doing. Yeah. That I just automatically went to this idea of, okay, I'm never going to be an entrepreneur because I like working for people. I like living out other people's visions, even though I wanted to eventually be this person who was identifying, or being the thought leader, right? I just felt like, oh, I'm never good enough to be the thought leader. I was actually talking to somebody earlier today where I was saying that I felt like my next step to get to the next level in my career was to be somebody's chief of staff, which is really interesting because it was like, I want to be the person behind the scenes, like making all this stuff happen and, being that person behind the number one and being their number two and like really helping live out other person's vision. But it was mostly because I didn't have the confidence that I could I could be that number one by myself.
Yeah.
So I think in hindsight, I feel like if I knew more about personal development and not just professional development, right? Because when we're working in corporate or when we're working in just a more organized setting, when we're being employed by somebody, we think about professional development, but we don't think about the personal. I think that if I had the opportunity, if I had known, I'd want to implement this whole personal development mindset training, or start those discussions earlier, because I think that would have empowered me or set me up for more clarity and success to do what it was that I wanted to from the get-go. And not to say that I would have known, like I think I still would have had to do a lot of trial and error to find what it is that I really wanted to do. And I think that that's part of anyone's journey. I don't think that there's anything bad about locking into something and switching careers, because because you sometimes need the awareness to decide, like, wow, that's not something that I want. Like, I don't want to sit behind a desk every day and plunk spreadsheets. Like, duh, I wouldn't have known that unless I tried it. But basically just being able to understand the way that the experiences that we have in life, the way that we are raised, the things that we learn throughout life, the experiences that just happen, like if we experience some sort of trauma or loss, how that impacts the way that we ultimately think and act. And if I would have known that earlier, I maybe would have been more open to, I might have not waited 13 years to be like, I need to change my life, maybe, but maybe not. I don't really know. But but that's just definitely something that I'm trying to do a little bit more with my kids. Not just saying like, this is the way things need to be done, because I feel like I was told like, this is what you need to do to be successful. And I listened to everybody else because of course, other people who were more successful, there is some merit to that. But then after going through all those motions and realizing that that wasn't the case, I wasn't feeling the success that I wanted to, then I was like, what did I miss? Yeah. And that was the one thing that I was missing. And, so I think that there's a formula. It really just depends on how you're raised. I think that kids in our day and age now, like there's so much more technology, right? Like I didn't even have a cell phone until senior year of college. And that's just the way that we all live life now. So I can't necessarily say that the way that I was raised is going to work for them, but I also, like, whatever I know, I won't know until I see the impacts later on, but at least I'll have the tools to kind of be equipped to say, okay, if something's not working, then how can we problem solve to do something differently? And I can proactively do that. But I wonder what would have happened if I knew it sooner,
Yeah. And as you're talking, I'm thinking about like my own journey, how how I went through that whole thing. At first I wanted to be an engineer, but then I was like in engineering school, and I was like, fuck this. I want to, I don't know. Like I was like really attracted to the dollar amount because my family always grew up not poor, but we were like middle class, but there were all these like ballers around us and stuff. Yeah. So money was like always the solution for us. And so I chased this dream of pharmacy. And then when I tell people now that, I really don't want to do pharmacy, they're like, what the fuck? You don't want to do pharmacy? You don't want to do this and that? And so I was just like thinking about like what you're talking about. And I think part of it too is also having like, okay, so maybe I don't want to do pharmacy, but we always have a choice to like make a different decision or take a different path in life, right? And again, like it's about sort of trusting yourself that you're smart enough that you can figure out the next steps, Yeah.
And the thing is too that being in pharmacy, like that's a very nice, comfortable job, and you're probably like amazing at it, and it might just not be your passion. So it is serving a purpose in your life right now, but knowing that you can make a transition to whatever it is that you want. And, I think the entrepreneurship route is always, it's going to be rocky. There's a lot of trial and error. Again, there's not every day in my job where I feel like, oh my gosh, I've got this all figured out. So, but just knowing that you have that stability and you don't have to worry about that. And as you're kind of creating and building, and when you get to that point of, wow, like I can say goodbye to this phase of my life, and it served that great purpose and gave me kind of the legs to feel comfortable and to explore what it is that I really wanted to do. And you can leave it and say, well, it served its purpose, and it was good for what I needed it to do.
Yeah, for sure. And it's definitely been an asset to me, because honestly, I wouldn't even be shooting videos if it wasn't for pharmacy.
Yeah, right? Exactly.
So like and a lot of my viewers are actually debating whether they should do pharmacy or not and whatnot. But let me ask you this, like, let's say if somebody's trying to debate like a next career step for them, what advice would you give to helping them make a more confident decision?
So if they're thinking about leaving their current job and transitioning to something else, or
maybe they're like just getting out of school, or maybe they've been out of school for a few years and they're transitioning. They're thinking about, fuck it, let's do pharmacy school. I want to become a pharmacist, but I don't know. Like, there's so much uncertainty. I don't know if I'm going to have a job in the future or anything like that. How do you deal with that?
I mean, I think that when you're trying to make a decision on anything, I think it's really, really important to understand what is most important to you, right? This might come, the way that I talk about it in my business is, really understanding what your values are. Because that is, I feel that values are such a great way to guide you to the decision that you need. I didn't even realize how important this was until I learned about it a few years ago. But now I use that to guide all of my decisions. So, for this audience, I think, one of the things that we probably generally all value is financial stability, right? Because without that, it's like stress is high. And it's one of those things that we're consciously making these choices to be in these very reputable, high-paying jobs because it provides us this stability. So if that's something that's driving us to make those choices, then that's something that we need to pay attention to. Starting out as an entrepreneur takes some time to really make the money that we can make in a 9-to-5 job. And I've told people this before, but like, let's say financial stability became an issue in my family. Like, I might go back to work. And I just know that because I know that the thought of like not having a support, like a financial support system, would rock my world. Yeah. So, really, if that's a huge thing, and we don't normally think about it until it's going to be threatened, right? Yeah. So, but really taking those types of things. But so now that I know that, let's say in my situation, financial stability is in a really, really great place. I've really looked at the way that I've been spending money and been making money and making sure that the things that I'm spending on are very valid and all of that. So if that's not there, then what's next? And when I was building my business, or just even thinking about what was important to me as a person, a lot of my main values are fun, accomplishment, connection. There's more, like authenticity is a huge one. There's you can have a lot of values, but thinking about the ones that are most important. So, the fact that I'm in this position where I can run my own business, I don't want to run a business that's going to be soul sucking. If I wanted to do that, I could just go work for somebody and have them pay me and tell me what to do. Yeah. I want to do something that's innovative, different, fun, exciting. And so anything that I do in my business, I'm not going to do it if it's not going to be fun. So, I do webinars towards the end of the year when I'm trying to, work on sales, which is not my favorite thing, but you have to make money in a business. But, so I don't do webinars unless I absolutely have to, because it's putting together PowerPoints is I'm not particularly excited about that, but I would definitely put together PowerPoint slides for an in-person talk. So it's really looking at what really, really gets me excited and wanting to wake up in the morning. And then, I said accomplishment was one of my goals. So, I really want to, really do some really great things. So being my own business owner, I was like, ooh, I would like to write a book. Like, I'm on this thing now where I'm like, I want to start my own show. How do I make that happen? Yeah. So really being able to say wow, I created this thing. That's a huge piece of my business. But then also connection. I mean, this started very, very early when I was getting out of college. I'm like, I don't know if I want to sit at a computer and not talk to anyone for 9 hours a day. I like talking to people. Yeah. So am I choosing a job that's going to allow me to interact with people in a way that's going to be enough for me? So it's really kind of getting clear on what you want, using maybe your values to drive the decisions that you make, and then using that to put together this picture of in this vision of what you want to create for yourself. And if for some reason you're in a job, like let's say your first job out of college, or you're trying to figure out, okay, all right, I signed up for this thing because that just seemed like the natural progression, but something isn't working or it just doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
Really being able to kind of sit with the information that you have, and asking yourself, what do I not like about the situation right now? And really growing that awareness about what's working and what's not, because that's going to help you decide what you're going to do in your next step. So, you might like the fact that I like the fact that this job pays a lot of money and I can leave it at 5 o'clock, hopefully, or, there's the different things. You can take the pros and the cons and, use that as a deciding factor of your next steps. Everything that we do in our life is an opportunity to learn. It's not a failure. It's just it's information that you can use to fuel your next decision. So, it's
kind of like
really
being part of the process, pretty much, right?
Exactly. So, it's, not looking at, oh my God, this doesn't work, I'm a failure, but saying that this is an opportunity for me to see what didn't work. And I wouldn't have known it any other way. Yeah. And it's a more positive spin on oh my gosh, that sucked. Being able to say oh, okay, this is the lesson that I needed to learn. I've definitely, even in my business, have done things where I'm why did I do that to myself again? That was me making a decision that wasn't right, but I don't look at it as a mistake. I look at it as an opportunity to make a change, because you don't necessarily, if everything's going well, you don't really think about what needs to change. So, but it's really taking those failures and the things that didn't work and figuring out an alternative way. That is one of the things that I feel has been incremental in my success, which is acknowledging when something really doesn't work. How do I make that differently? Or how do I do that differently? So
yeah, and I think not only figuring out a solution, but you do it in such a fun way too. And I think that's after reading your book multiple times, I think that's the thing that's really impacted my life, because sometimes we just take shit so fucking seriously.
Yeah.
And we forget to have fun in the process and stuff. And I think that's one of the most enjoyable things as an entrepreneur and whatnot. It's just really, really, really fun to it's almost how I describe it is did you ever read those books Choose Your Own Adventure type of things?
Yeah.
It's exactly like that, you know? So yeah, and whether it's through business or for me picking up girls at a club, really, yeah, no, that was hella fun. You helped me so much for that.
Aww.
Because I'll go into my personal story really quick, but
yeah.
For the longest time, I just struggled so much because, it's a lot of anxiety. When you're trying to talk to a girl at a club and stuff, you're thinking I don't want to get rejected. I don't when should I ask for a number? How should I open? It's just so many of these thoughts are in your head, right?
Yeah.
But then one of the things that you really helped set me with is just have fun. And so when I shifted from fear or anxiety to fun, I was able to just really connect with people. And if people rejected me, I would just make it fun and be relax, I'm not a serial killer, or say something really stupid, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it make people open up so much. And thanks to your book and whatnot, it really helped me kind of find myself or find my best friend. And it was me. I'm my best friend, man.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. And that's the funny thing too. I think that, when we get all in our head about, what should I do? And when you start thinking about the external factors or being the people pleaser and trying to mold yourself to be something, in hopes that they'll like you, you're probably going to experience some conflict later on down the road because you're not being your authentic self. So, I mean, and that was something where, there's so many things, so many quirky things that I do. I'm a super planner, and everybody used to make fun of me. So one of my fun stories is that when me and my husband Tim got married, I I planned out everything to the minute, and our wedding party was like 50 people because that's how Filipino weddings are. Even though he's not Filipino, but still it was like I had to manage 50 people, and I'm like, all right, this is all going to move smoothly. So I gave every single person one job. And then I also doubled them up with like a backup. So I'm like, okay, if these two people don't do, if I see something doesn't work, then I know exactly who screwed up. But it was like this 14-page spreadsheet, and then I filtered it. It was like in Excel, right? I filtered it with like, here are what the flower girls need to be doing, and here are the sponsors need to be, here are what my parents need to do, and here's Tim's list. And so I was handing out all these things, and everyone was like, oh my gosh, Apryl, seriously. I'm like, if you didn't want to be a part of this wedding, you could have said no. But it's all of that, really just not focusing on, just be your authentic self and just embrace that. And the people who don't want to be in your life will self-select out. Like you'll see, the way that you show up is who you're going to attract. It's this whole like law of attraction thing. And I even think that in the last few years, some of my friends who were friends for a really long time, our relationships have changed. Some of them I'm not as close to anymore. And it's just because I've gotten really clear on what's important to me, and then realizing that those people didn't really fit those values anymore. And, as a result, I'm in a much better place because I know that I'm honoring the things that are most important to me, and not just trying to keep people in my life because I want them to like me, or I want, because I feel obligated because I've known them forever or whatnot. So it definitely takes time, but I look at everything now as, how do I make this fun? And, there's a lot of stuff that is even in just marketing and doing business. I'm like, how can I do this differently so that it's fun? And maybe it's not going to be the best strategy, but if it's fun, it's going to feel like the best strategy for me.
Yeah.
So
especially that self-selecting type of thing that you're talking about. I noticed, like, you said one of your core values is authenticity, and for me, that's one of my core values too, to always be real with people. And it's so funny, I came back from this emotional intelligence course and whatnot, like maybe a few months ago, and I realized that, dude, I was people pleasing all the time. And
so many people do it.
I was just like, fuck this. Like, I don't want to do this, and I don't want to have fake relationships in my life anymore. I just want to be myself. And just like you said, people start, like, when you start being your true authentic self, people start drifting apart from you. And it's so funny, like, since it was a sudden change, I lost like one of my best friends immediately. But I just realized that, there's some people in your life, they don't make you feel good, or like there's just this negative energy sometimes. And as soon as
they serve a purpose, right? There's probably something about them that you were so drawn and attracted to. Like, I used to be really indecisive. And I'd just be like, whatever you want to do. And I still kind of do that, but it's like, whatever you want to do. And I would tend to partner up with people who were very decisive. So it was like, I didn't have to do it. But then it was like, what was that about? And as soon as I started being more decisive, it was all of a sudden like, who's this chick? And I was like, wow, like, I can do things that I want and I'm happier. But then now that person doesn't serve their purpose because you would be with them because they would make the decisions for me, or they would be they would show the power that I wish that I had. And so it's really, really interesting because once I was able to stand on my own two legs, it was like, wow, like our relationship isn't the same anymore. And then maybe they saw that as a way, they could see me as like a way of like somebody who's like validating the actions that they're taking. And I don't know. But, it's really interesting when you think about like why people are in your life and what type of purpose they serve. It's crazy.
When your friends drifted apart, or when you're no longer talking to these people, I'm not sure for you, but for me, like, I just felt like a huge burden has been lifted from my heart because I can just be myself without worrying about what other people think. It's just an amazing feeling for me.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, and I lost one of my best friends in the last year or so, and it's been very, very painful because it's like, I hope, like, she'll probably, I don't know if she'll ever see this, but it's one of those things where, like, she was such a rock in my life for so many years, and we're in different places, and it's really interesting because we never even had the opportunity to discuss it, but I realized that I'm a person who like really wants to talk things out, and she's very, you know, conflict avoidant, and so like we're never going to have this conversation unless she wants to be able to like have the conflict and work through it. And I'm not saying that she's wrong or that, you know, because I think that there's definitely mistakes that I've made as well, but it's like we're not seeing eye to eye, and until we're ready to have that conversation, and maybe it just takes some time, but like I miss her, like I really, really do. And but you know, I also acknowledge that maybe we're in two different places. I've made so much change in the last few years that I don't know. I think I'm still who I am, but it's just a more powerful me. And it's just trying to figure out how that relationship will thrive with these different strengths that I've developed and realized over time. So, you know, it'll take some time, and maybe, you know, hopefully down the road we'll be friends again. But you know, those are some of the things that are like tough right now. Like I always was so close with everybody that I've allowed into my life, and I'm super communicative, and you know, and that's just part of me, and it's like I feel rejected because it's like it's not a difficult conversation in my eyes, but maybe it is for them. And so it's just kind of acknowledging that, you know, there's different, you know, relationships show up in many different ways, and even though that person's not in my life right now, oh my gosh, I've got so many amazing people. Like, it's like I would have met somebody like you, or all these other conferences that I've been to, and all the amazing people that are in my life now that weren't there before. And that's because I'm being authentic, and I'm attracting the people that I want in my life. And it's just a different story. So it's like, even though there's that unfortunate situation, like look at all the good that's come out of it. Yeah.
Let me ask you, like, when you're writing your book too, we'll go into your book right now, but when you're writing your book, did you think a lot about the relationships that you had, like, while writing your book? Because a huge part of it is actually you talking about your upbringing and stuff too.
Yeah. I would say that anything that I wrote, even if I was using an example in my book, is always tied to a story that I experienced directly. And, you know, to keep people anonymous and really focus on not like name dropping and all that stuff. Obviously, I didn't use names, but there's always, I use stories and my experiences to drive, you know, next actions and all of that. But yeah, I mean, relationships is such a huge, big piece. I did obviously write a whole chapter on relationships, and there's so many different relationships out there, and it's almost kind of like, you can't live life without relationships, especially with yourself. Like that's the number one.
That is a huge thing.
Yeah, but I think thinking about, you know, what I wanted to say and being able to make sure that I articulate what I was feeling, but at the same time not making people feel like, oh my God, I hate you for what you did to me, because I don't. I mean, you know, not everything was perfect, but at the same time, you know, there's you know, again, just as when everything's not perfect, there's always a learning. There's always an opportunity to do something different. And, you know, the relationships I've had with people, even, you know, I talked about like all my relationships in my life, my love relationships, and how I got to my husband, and it was like, wow, I was a super people pleaser for so much in my life, for so much time, and now it's very different, because I think my husband is the first guy that, like, he kind of knew me before we even started dating, and so he saw the worst of me. We definitely made fun of each other, and but we were best friends. But that was a really big, powerful piece in why our relationship succeeded, is because I didn't have to, you know, figure out what he liked and do that. I just did whatever I wanted to, and, you know, and that happened to be okay. And so it was just not a lot of work. You know, it's like we always try to work too hard. But yeah, I mean, I think that every relationship that I've had in my life has significantly impacted me in so many different ways, and that's a lot of those experiences with people or with myself are basically what drove what I wrote in that book.
And I think, like, definitely when you're writing your book, like, I don't know, I felt very emotionally connected because in so many of your stories, I actually saw myself, everything from the people pleasing to the different relationships and stuff. And it really helped cultivate like a better relationship with myself too. In the end, you know?
Yeah.
We've been talking about the theme of having fun in your life and bringing back the fun, right?
Yeah.
How would you incorporate that fun in everyday life?
In everyday life. I'll use an example of one of my clients I was talking to recently. She was like, I want to infuse more fun into my life. And the first question I asked her, and I think I said this in my book too, but the first question I asked was like, what's your definition of fun? Right? Because a lot of people like have this idea of fun, and one person might be like, oh, I want to do knitting and I want to make quilts and I want to do gardening, where other people might be like, I want to jump out of planes and I want to do this, and other people might say like, I just want to be around people and like I want to sit in the quiet, or I want to be like in a lot of noise. So just like a lot of what I say in my book, there's this opportunity to define what that really means to you, and once you know that, then you can start thinking about how to make that happen. And so, but then, you know, instilling different practices to make sure that you're having fun every day. So a lot of times for me, when I generally have trained myself to think about doing anything, any decision that I make, it has to be fun. But if you're just starting out, it's what is fun, and then figuring out the aspects of the things that, you know, sometimes it might be like, well, what have you done in your life that has been fun? So people might say like, I really enjoyed, you know, doing that Spartan race, or I really enjoyed doing, you know, flying trapeze, and I really enjoy, and then taking those aspects of the things that you saw as fun and finding the characteristics about those activities that made it fun, and then figuring out from those characteristics, you know, making choices that are in line with those characteristics. So, you know, first, define what fun means to you. To identify things that were actually fun, and maybe even the things that aren't fun, right? So it's like, okay, I want to do more of that, and I don't want to do more of that. But then taking the characteristics and making sure that that you implement that in your life. So one last example is that, like, I've been doing fantasy football for 15 years. Me and my brother manage a team together, and I talked about this in my book. It was funny because I said a lot of things that I like love and think are fun, and like half of them I'm not doing now, but my life has changed so much. But so fantasy football was so important to me, and I had so much fun because it was mostly people that I knew in the league, and we were all connected to each other. So that's, you know, being connected to people was good. But managing a team with my brother, like, we just talked so much more, and it was something that we had in common, that we were both passionate about, that would just allow us to be connected and have conversation. And so that was really, really fun. But as in the last couple of years, I haven't really been paying attention to football. I think that it's just, I don't know, like I've been doing it for such a long time. It's kind of getting boring, and I'm finding myself not talking to my brother as much, but also because he's got a crazy busy schedule, and, you know, half the time I'm not even looking at what's happening in football. And so I'm realizing now that it's probably a phase of my life that's ending, and it was fun at one time, but it's not anymore. But how do I preserve the aspects of that were fun and create a new set of like activities? So how can I connect with my brother and make sure that we're doing things? And if I like football but fantasy is not my thing anymore, then, you know, how can I do something fun with football if I still like football? So like one of these things this year is that my assistant and he's a Packers fan and I'm a Bears fan, which is, you know, like big rub. And so we're actually every week we're placing bets on who would score head to head between the Bears and the Packers. You know, who would score more. And so we'll either, you know, pick one of the teams, or we'll pick a tie, and we have to just predict how the scores are going to show up, even though they're not playing each other. And so that's super fun. Like I get to, you know, I'm paying attention to now, like, how are the Bears doing and how are the Packers doing? I want them to lose. So it's really funny because now I'm finding different ways to engage with the things that I think are fun, but, you know, if it's not serving its purpose now, then being able to change the rules. So yeah, that's a long-winded answer to your question on how to infuse more fun.
I think that's an amazing answer, just because, like, when we take when we take a word like fun, it seems like sometimes it feels like so airy fairy, you know, up in the air, but you do a really good job, and it's probably your engineering brain and whatnot, where you break it down and you're just like, fuck, define what's not fun and stuff, and really gain more clarity about it. I really like that answer a lot.
Yeah.
Man, there's so much I want to talk to you about. Like, I didn't get to talk to you about like you writing your book or anything like that. I was like looking over all my notes. Like, I have all these like post-it notes and shit. I was like, fuck, I didn't get to ask so many things, but you know, I'm sure
maybe we'll have to do a round 2.
We'll do a part 2. But anyways, guys, if you want to follow Apryl, I'll put her social media down below. I'll put a link to her book so you can buy a third of those bitches, and make sure to leave a review. Apryl, did you want to plug anything else before we end?
Oh my gosh. I mean, I would love to connect with anyone. I like connections, one of my values. So if you are just inspired by what you see and what you've heard today, like, feel free, definitely check out the book if that resonates with you. Obviously, I'm a coach, so I have different programs. I'm very, very big on personal touch. So even if, you know, you just want to get to know me, want to, you know, friend me on Facebook or follow me on Twitter, absolutely do it. Or Instagram, because I'm not on Twitter that much. But yeah, I think that, you know, I've got a lot of fun things planned for 2018. When I start my show, Kevin, I might need to have you on. we can talk about, we can do like a little snippet on like fun things Asians say or something like that. I don't know. But yeah, we'll do something fun. And yeah, just if you're interested, then just for sure follow me on the socials. Check out my website, thecheerfulmind.com, and that's about it.
Apryl, it's not even if they're interested. I know they're going to be interested, because if I was like fangirling over your book and stuff, like for sure my fans will definitely enjoy it. So definitely make sure to follow her. Also, before we close out, like I said, I mentioned it a little bit earlier, but I'm very grateful that I met you at Forefront, because you've really helped me kind of break past like that barrier of doing everything by myself and just having more fun in my life. And like I said, I've been having so many wins like this year, everything from picking up girls to improving all my relationships to just like, you know, really reframing everything in my life and just having more fun with it. It's just an amazing journey so far. So I just want to thank you so much for spending some time to shoot this video with me, and I hope the rest of you guys liked it, and make sure to leave a comment and follow her and hit her up.
Hit me up. Thank you so much, Kevin, for having me. This is so fun.
Yeah,
this is right up there with some of the most fun conversations I've had, so like, let's definitely do more of it for sure.
Part 2 coming soon.
Part 2.